Tov. Today's Daf Yomi is Bava Kamma 33b, 34, and we're going to start on 33b. Just, uh, just hold on. Three lines from the bottom, and today's Daf Yomi is designated for a Shemira, for a Chazaka, for Yeshua, for all of those in Israel, especially the 136 hostages. May they be released speedily from captivity. So we're analyzing a Tosefta that the Gemara discussed on Lamed Gimel, and so now we get to the end of that Tosefta on three lines in the bottom on 33b. The Tosefta says, "Kadlu ba'lechovos v'igbiu." Let's say the creditors came along and seized the ox of the mazik before the nizak was able to claim the ox. Bein chavat shel hizik, whether he owed them the money before the ox did the damage, or whether he did the damage and then he owed them the money. In either case, we're going to say it doesn't matter. The creditors were not able to take it because he only pays from the body of the animal itself, and so therefore these creditors can't take it because it has to go to the nizak. The Gemara says, wait 1 second. I understand if the mazik damaged and nizak before the creditors, the nizak and kanmu, then I understand why the nizak has the right to the ox because he came before the creditors. But if the debt to the creditors came before the damage of the nizik, so then these guys came first. They should be allowed to take it. And furthermore, said the Gemara on the top of 34a, I feel he's a god shulchav, even if he did the damage on the nizak before he owed the debt, still we have a principle in ksuvos balchov kadim. We say that if the creditor comes along and seizes it, since he seized it, we don't take it away from him. We did this Gemara in ksuvos tzadi amud alef. Even if he was a later creditor, if he seized it first, he gets to keep it. Shema mina, do you want to say from here that balchov nu'uchar shekadem gava mashagava gava? Do you want to say from here that it was a later creditor came along and claimed it? That it's not valid? The Gemara says no. No, really, I'll tell you, whatever he claimed, whatever he sees, this is. But in this case, Shani Asam, the case of the creditor, the reason why the creditor seizes the ox that damaged the nizak, why he has to give it to the nizak, is because the Amrulay, because the nizak would say to the creditor, let's say this ox was yours, let's say it already seized it, wouldn't I also be able to seize it straight from you? Because this ox who does the damage, that's where I seize the penalty from. So even if you had seized it, I would still be able to take it directly from you. Says the Gemara, Tan Rabbanan, in the following scenario: Shor Shavim Masayim. Let's say you have an ox that's worth 200. Shenagach Shor Shavim Masayim, that gores an ox that's worth 200. And it does the damage of 50 zuz. So basically, at this point, we would say that the owner of the mazik, he owes 25 because he did 50 zuz worth of damage, so he has to pay half. But in this case, but the ox goes up in value after he damaged it, it's now worth 400 zuz. And if he had not actually done damage to it, this guy says, you know what? If it had never been damaged, it would have been worth 800. So, no saying kashas and nezek. So we say we don't care. You give him the amount of damage that you did at the time of the damage, which is in this case 50 zuz. So you'd have to give him 25 zuz. That's what you have to say. Rashi says, hold equal or Maimar, since he could have said, since he could have said if it wasn't damaged, you give him 800. You only give him 25. And he can't say, and the Rashi says the Chiddush is that the guy whose ox did the damage can't say to him, I didn't cost you any money. It went up to 400 because he could say to him, well, if you hadn't damaged me, it would have been worth 800. So the mazik can't say I don't owe you anything, and the nizak can't say well, you have to give me all the way to 800. So okay, that's Rashi gives another pshat. We'll go with the first pshat of Rashi. So the Gemara continues. But let's say kachash, let's say it goes down in value after he gored it. It's now worth less than 150. Kishas samad bedin. Then we look at it as what it's worth in court. Meaning to say, if the nizak if it goes down in value, then we look at it when it comes to court. Shevach mazik, but let's say the mazik's ox, and remember we pay mikufo from the ox itself because it's a tam. Let's say that went up in value. Notice in lo kishas and nezik. You give it to him like the time of the damage. Means even though the ox went up to 1,000, if at the time of damage is worth 200, that's the cap. If the mazik's ox goes down in value, we give it to him at what it was worth at the time that he stands in front of the court. So Amar Mar, so let's analyze this shevach. It goes up in value. Mazik knows saying kishas and nizek. Then we're going to say that the mazik gives him as what it was worth at the time of the damage. So this is like Rabbi Shmuel to Amar Baal Chofu. He's a creditor. The Vezuzi with the mazik. Like this is like the position we saw yesterday of Rabbi Shmuel that the mazik is in debt to the nizak. The nizak is basically a creditor. He comes to claim it, and so therefore he just owes him money. So therefore we just look at what it was valued at the time of the actual damage. But Ema Seifa, but the next clause says Kichesh Kishas Amad Bedin. But the next clause says if it goes down in value, we look at it what it's worth at the time it comes before the court. That's also Rabbi Akiva Damar Shutvin Nenu. That goes according to Rabbi Akiva, who says that they're partners, that the mazik and the nizik are now partners in the ox of the mazik. So do you really want to say Reisha Rabbi Shmuel and Seifa Rabbi Akiva? Do you really want to say that the first part of the Seifa is Rabbi Shmuel and the next clause is Rabbi Akiva? We don't want to say that. Gemara says, no, Kula Rabbi Akiva. The whole brisa is Rabbi Akiva. It says that they're partners. So why, if it goes up in value, does the mazik not have to share that? Kishapitmo, because he put his own money into fattening it. He spent money feeding it, and so therefore he doesn't have to share that with the nizak. The Gemara says, if that's what we're talking about, Ema Reisha, but what about the first clause? It says, Shavach, let's say the ox that was damaged went up in value, V'amar al Dal and Meozuz, and now it's worth 400 zuz, no Samol Kashas and Nezik. He only gives it to him what it was worth at the time of the damage, in that case it was 50 zuz, he only has to pay him 25. But if the nizak gave a lot of food to the ox to raise its value, do you need to tell us that the mazik doesn't get to share in the improvement of the ox? Obviously, just the nizak improved it. So the Gemara says, so Amar Papa Reisha Mishkachas. No, in the first clause where the ox goes up in value from 150 to 400 zuz, then we're saying that the nizak gets to keep a bein de pitame pitume bein de shifcha b'meila, whether it went up because he fed it or whether it went up because just the price of oxen went up. But it's just teaching us the chiddush that even where it goes up on its own, the mazik still has to give him what it was worth at the time of the damage, meaning say it cost him 50 zuz. But seifa, but in the concluding clause, where the mazik's ox goes up in value and the nizak doesn't get to share in it, that's only the case where we say that he doesn't get to share, where it went up in value because the mazik fed it, so then it's all the maziks. So then we say the next clause was kichesh kishas amad bedin. If it goes down in value, if the mazik, then if it goes down in value, we look at it what it's worth at the time it goes to the court. So this is referring to here where the ox that was gored goes down in value. We evaluate it when it comes to the court. It goes down in value. That's the damages you have to pay. So the Gemara says, why did it go down in value? If you want to say that the nizak was working in and that's why it went down, so the mazik should say to him, you caused it to go down, you want me to give you the money? Ravashi, no, it went down in value via the initial goring. He says, your ox is still buried inside me, and that's why it's going down. That's the reason why I went down. Therefore, the mazik is responsible for that loss also. Okay, we're up to the Mishnah. Shor Shava Masayim. So let's say you have an ox that's worth 200 zuz. Shenagach Shor Shava Matayim. That goes another ox that's worth 200 zuz. The Einan Nevela Yafakum. And now the carcass is not worth anything. Amar Rabbi Meir. So basically, the mazik cost this guy 200 zuz, an ox of 200 zuz. And his ox is also worth 200 zuz. So Rabbi Meir says, Al Zen Amar, Mecharo es Ashur Achai, V'chatzu es Kaspo. About this, the pasuk says you sell the living ox and you divide it in half. Mazik sells his 200 zuz ox. He gives 100 to the nizak and he keeps 100. So Amar Rabbi Huda v'cheina halacha. Rabbi Huda says that is exactly what he does. However, that's not what the pasuk means. We still have to know what the pasuk means. Kiyamto, we fulfilled the fact that the verse says Umachru es hashur achai v'chatzu es kaspo. We fulfilled that aspect of the verse that you sell the ox that's alive and divide in half. But below Kiyamta, there's another part of the pasuk which says V'gama meis yachatzun. Also, the dead ox you should divide in half. Is that what's a dead ox that you have to divide in half? That refers to what's a dead ox that you have to divide in half? That refers to a shor shava masayim, shenagach shor shava masayim. That's an ox that gores another ox, and each one was worth 200. Va'nevelo yafa chamishim zuz, and the carcass is worth 50 zuz. Zeno tel chatzi achai v'chatzi ames. That this one takes half of the live one and half of the dead one. V'zeno tel chatzi achai v'chatzi ames, and this one takes half of the live one and half of the dead one. So that's what they're saying. So that's how Rabbi Yehuda understands it. So the Gemara says, Tana Rabbanan, Shor Shava Masayim, Shenagach Shor Shava Masayim. The Gemara is going to repeat their position. But the Gemara is going to try and understand what's really the distinction between Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda. At the end of the day, aren't they saying the same thing in terms of practical consequences? So the Gemara says, the Braitha says, if there's an ox that's worth 200, the gores an ox that's worth 200. And the carcass is worth 50. Zenotel chatzi achai v'chatzi ames. This one takes half of the living and half of the dead. Zenotel chatzi achai v'chatzi ames. Zenoshor amor b'torah. This is again the position of Rabbi Yehuda. Whereas Rabbi Meir says, "Ein zenoshor amor b'torah." That's not what the Torah is referring to. El shor shava masayim. Shenagach shor shava masayim vein and nafil yafakum. If one ox is worth 200 cores, another ox is worth 200, and the carcass is not worth anything. Al zen amar, about this pasuk it says, "Umachur ashur achai v'chatzu es kaspo." You sell the ox that's alive and you divide it in half. So according to Rameir, how do you interpret the second part of the verse? He says, Pachas shepachto misa mechatzin b'chai. So he says it's to teach us that if it doesn't refer to the carcass at all. The carcass doesn't belong back to the mazik at all, but rather we evaluate the carcass, how much it went down now from the time when it was alive, and the mazik has to give half of the deterioration. So the Gemara says, but wait 1 second. The Gemara says, I don't understand what's the distinction between Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda. The Gemara says, they both say that you have to give, each one is losing 125. They're losing the ox that was alive, and then they're losing the carcass, they're losing half of the carcass. So they're both losing 125. So my benayo. So what's really the distinction between Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda? So Amarava, Pachas Nevela Ika benayo. So Rava says the distinction between them is if the carcass went down in value from the time of death until the time of the sale. According to Rabbi Meir, the mazik doesn't really own the carcass at all. He doesn't have an interest in it. And so therefore, he has to give he just has to give what it was worth at the moment of the death. He doesn't have to pay the further deterioration. So that's the distinction. The total loss by the deterioration of the carcass, that's borne by the nizak. Whereas Rabbi Yehuda savar pachas the nevela and the mazik. He says the nevela is the mazik is a partner in the deterioration of the carcass. So Amarei, so Abaye says, Imkain, Abaye says to Rav Imkain, Matzino Rabbi Yehuda. So Rabbi Yehuda is saying that the Tam shares in the deterioration of the carcass. We're now on the top of Lamadal number base, the top of 34b. So Gemara says, well, if that's the case, Tam Chamar Mamuad. Well, if that's the case, it turns out that an ox who's never gored before, this Tam is actually going to be more severe, judged more severely than an ox that's gored before. Rashi reminds us, because we said in the first chapter that by an ox that's an ox that's a muad, the owner of the ox, the nizak, is responsible for the carcass. And so in this case, the Tam loses more money because he gets a depreciation, he splits it. So and if you want to say, okay, yeah, that's the case, that we know that there's another case, which we're going to, God willing, get to on Daf Mem Hey in the fourth chapter. The Rabbi Yehuda says, Tam Chayev Umuad Pater, that there's a case of Shmira where they're supposed to do a certain level of guarding, where the Tam is actually more severe than the Muad, and that's based upon a verse. And so you see the Rabbi Yehuda does say under certain circumstances, the Tam is more severe than Muad, but that's an exception based upon a verse. Maybe Rabbi Yehuda says with respect to the guarding of the oxen, cry, because it says it specifically in a verse. But does Rabbi Yehuda really say that the Tam could be more severe than the Muad with respect to the payments that they have to make? Because we have another case that proves that Rabbi Yehuda says the Tam is not more severe than the Muad. Let's say there's a case where there's an ox that was worth, let's say, a mana, and a mana we know is the equivalent of 25 selah, and each selah is equivalent of 4 zuz. So let's say you have an ox that's worth basically 25 selah, shenagach shor shava chamesh slam, and Vikor is an ox that's worth 5 slam. So basically, Vanaveli yafa selah, and the carcass is worth a selah. So basically, he knocked it down in value from 4 slime, because it's still worth 1 selah. So he did 4 selah. He knocked it down in value from 5 selah to 1 selah. And so therefore he did 16 zuzim worth of damage. You might think that under these circumstances, the mazik takes half of the living one and half of the dead one. And the nizak also takes half of the ox that's alive, which means to say that he's going to make money. So then you say you can't do that. Do you think that the muad, when the Torah tells us about a muad, do you think it's telling us to hachmir or lahakil? You think the Torah is telling us about a muad to be stricter, to be lenient? Rabbi Yehuda says it's obviously going to be strict. The muad is obviously stricter. So too, the muad can only pay is limited to the damages that it does. Tam you're not going to say that Tam, which is more lenient, would end up paying more than the muad. So if the muad is limited to the damage it did, we're not going to say that the Tam will pay half of its own value, even when it's more than the muad, when it's more than the regular damage. So Rabbi Yehuda can't say that in this case that the Tam is more severe than the muad, so only the Tam shares in depreciation and not the muad. So therefore, Elam or Rabbi Yochanan, so Rabbi Yochanan says we have to explain the dispute between Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda differently. We're talking about the distinction between them is Shevach Nevela Ikav. Let's say the carcass goes up in value, and so therefore it was worth, let's say, $1 at the time of death, but now it's worth $2. The Marasavar Denizakavi, that Rabbi Meir is going to the position that since the mazik has no share in the nizik at all, so therefore it all in the carcass at all, the shevach all belongs to the nizik. Umar Savar, whereas Rabbi Yehuda is of the position, Palgar, that he has that the mazik has a share in the improvements of the carcass. And the Gemara says, and that's why behind the kakashile Rabbi Yehuda, and that's why Rabbi Yehuda was bothered in a different source by this exact question, because we said Hashada Amras Chas Rachmani Lavei Demazik the Shakal B'Shivcha. Since you established that the Torah has compassion on the mazik, and if the carcass goes up in value, he gets a share in that. I might have thought Yachal Shor Shava Chamesh Laim Shenagal Shor Shava Mana. I might have thought, let's say there was an ox that was worth the reverse of the previous case. There was an ox that was worth 5 selah, and a gourd an ox worth 100. And the carcass is worth 50 zuz. I might have thought Zenotel Chatzia Chayv, Zenotel Chatzia Mace, Zenotel Chatzia Chayv, Chatzia Mace. I might have thought that both of them get to take half of the living and half of the dead. And in this case, the Tom is making money because he's getting the carcass, the dead animal, which is worth more than his ox. How can you say that the mazik will benefit? The Omer Shalem Shalem, he has to pay. Baalam Shalem, Vein Baalam Notlim, then he has to pay, but he doesn't get to take it. So clearly Rabbi Yehuda says that's why Rabbi Yehuda was bothered by this logic, because if you say the mazik shares in depreciation, I might have thought the mazik also shares in depreciation, but that can't be. The first, the Gemara says, Maiva Omer. Why do we need, in addition to the logic, why do we need the pasuk of Shalem Shalem? You might have said Hani Mili, that when do we say that they don't split it? I might have said, when do they not split it? Where the nizak would actually lose money in that case, like in the first case. But where the nizak himself is making money, like for example, could go in shor shava chamesh laim, shenagal shor shava chamesh laim. Like if an ox that was worth 5 sel, gourd an ox that's worth 5 sel, and veil yafesh shloshim zuz, and the vela is worth 30 zuz, which is actually ending up more than it was originally while it was alive. Shakal nami mazik b'shivcha. I might have thought that the mazik gets to also share in the appreciation because the nizik himself is making money. Mar says no, Mar shalem b'shalem ba'am b'shalem ve'im ba'am notim. The mazik can never make money off of this, and so therefore that's what Rabbi Yehuda is saying. Rabbi Yehuda is saying that they share in the depreciation. Rabbi Yehuda is saying, that Rabbi Meir is saying that they don't share in the depreciation, but Rabbi Yehuda is saying that they split the depreciation, but they still don't get anything of the appreciation. So Amar Le Rav Achabar Dakliful Rava Im Kain, if you want to say that if you want to say this, that Rabbi Yehuda is saying that the pasuk means when it says the gamas ameis that they share in the depreciation. Matzinu Rabbi Yehuda, we find sometimes according to Rabbi Yehuda that the tam is mishalim yoser mechatzin nezek. That sometimes the tam animal will end up paying more than half damages, which is a problem. How could the tam end up paying more than half? So let's say the ox was worth 50 zuz, and it gores another ox that's worth 40 zuz, and the carcass is worth 20 zuz. And so therefore, if he was worth 50 and the gored ox is worth 40, anyway, he has to pay up to 25 zuz because he knocked the ox in half. But then you take the ox that was worth 20 and you cut it down, and now each of them is paying 35 zuz. So therefore, the mazik is paying more than half of the damage because his ox was only worth 50 and he's paying 35. Torah Amro, you only do half. So the Gemara says, no, Islay Rabbi Yehuda is also the position, and when it says Gamas Ameis Yachatzun, it's teaching us Pachas Shem Pirta Misa Mechatz Mechai. It's teaching us this law that we look at the depreciation from what it was worth while it was alive, and so therefore you can only take it from up to half, and it's capped in that way. And so therefore the pasuk's talking about where that there's still a limit. He can't take more than half. So the Gemara says, how does Rabbi Yehuda know this? Because it says v'gamas hameis yachatzun, but it says also the dead body will be split, meaning to say you can't the mazik can't end up paying more than half. The Gemara says v'afke Rabbi Yehuda, but didn't Rabbi Yehuda already use that pasuk to teach us zenotel chatzia chai chatzia meis v'zenotel chatzia chai meis? Didn't it already teach us that to teach us that they share in the depreciation? So the Gemara says, Im Kain, if that would be the case, Nichtov Krav Esameis. Torah could have just written Esameis. My Vigam, why does it teach us Vigam Esameis Yachatzun? So it's to teach us both things. Shema min hatarti. It's teaching us both things. That mazik is a partner and in the appreciation of the carcass, and also this idea that we just said that the mazik will also be kept only at half. So now up to the next Mishnah. The next Mishnah, beautiful Mishnah. Yesh chayev al ma'aseh shoro. There are some people who are responsible for the damage done by their ox. Upater al ma'aseh atzmo. But if they themselves did it, they'd be exempt. There's some people pater al ma'aseh shoro. There's some cases where they'd be exempt for the actions done by their ox. But he's responsible for the actions he himself does. Geitzad. How so? Shora should be. Let's say the ox damages somebody in a manner that would have caused humiliation. Pater, the ox is exempt from damages, from anything other than actual damage. It's exempt from humiliation. It's also exempt from tsari poy and sheves. Tosfos points out. It should have said everything. But that we already learned earlier, or we're going to learn later on. So it doesn't need to point it out. So therefore, v'husha b'ish. But if the man himself had humiliated somebody with his damages, chayiv, he'd be liable. So too, shorosh shesimes in abdo. Let's say his ox blinds his slave, v'ipil esheno, and knocks out his slave's tooth. Pater, he doesn't have to pay damages because the slave is his. So who's he going to pay damages to? However, who shesimes in abdo v'ipil esheno? If he knocks out his slave's eye and knocks out his slave's tooth, chayiv, he's responsible. And therefore the slave will go free. Those are one of the 24 limbs that if you knock out from your slave, the slave goes free. And so too, let's say his ox, son, gores his father and his mother, chayav, he's responsible. But if he gores his father and his mother, pater, we're going to say he's exempt. Why is he exempt if he gores his father and his mother? Because we said the idea is kimle b'deramine. If he gores his father and his mother, he's liable for the death penalty. So therefore, he doesn't pay damages because it will be only given a more severe penalty, which we'll discuss a lot of in tomorrow's daf. Shorosh hidlik esekadesh b'Shabbos. Let's say his ox lights a stack of grain on Shabbos. Chayav, he's responsible for the damages that his ox did. He has to pay chatzi nezek because it's mishuna, it's unusual. But let's say who hidlik esekadesh b'Shabbos. But if he did it, he'd be exempt because we're going to say he's pater from neshum eschayv v'nafsho again because he's responsible for his life. So therefore, he's exempt from the damages. So Tani Rabbi Avo Kamei de Rabbi Abbas. Rabbi Avo taught in the name of Tani Rabbi Avo Kamei de Rabbi Yochanan, fundamental principle about Shabbos. Ko HaMekalkel and Peturin. Anybody who does damage on Shabbos, in Shabbos, in order to be liable, you have to do a malacha machshavos. You have to do a work that requires expertise and also that's beneficial. But if you do something destructive, you're going to be Peturin. You're exempt from Shabbos. The exception of chovel mavir. It's the exception if you did a wound or if you made a fire on Shabbos, even without any need, you're going to be liable. So Amar Lei, when Rabbi Yochanan heard this teaching, he said to Rabbi Avo, Puk Tani Levra, go take this price outside. We don't like it. Chovel mavir in our Mishnah. The idea that if you make a wound or you make a fire without any purpose, you're not responsible. That's not a teaching. It's a mistake. Even for those things, if you did it in a destructive manner, you're exempt. Imtim Somer Mishnah, and if you want to say it's a Mishnah, that it's then what would be the reason why you're responsible for a wound and a fire? Chovel b'tzarchot kalbo. Now we're talking about a case where you killed the animal in order to give its blood to your dog. And so even though with respect to this animal it was kilkul, was destructive, nevertheless there's a benefit because you're feeding it to the dog. And mavir b'tzarcha afro. And when do we say that you're responsible for fire? When you need its ashes. And so therefore you were burning it for a benefit. Those cases we're saying you're responsible on Shabbos. But in general, any destructive act you're going to be exempt for on Shabbos. This is the fundamental teaching of kilkul. You're only responsible on Shabbos for an act that was creative to help. But if it was destructive, that's not the violation of Shabbos and you're exempt for it. Okay, we'll stop here. God willing, pick this up If anybody has any questions, happy to address or review this at 8.